Hello everyone. Today we are going to read our first chapter, Where, When and How. New words to remember. Medieval. The period between AD 700 and AD 1750 in the Indian history. It is a period in between the ancient and the modern periods. Numismatics. Study of coins issued by the rulers. Chronicles. Written account of important or historical events in the order in which they occurred. Jati, a caste or subcaste. Manuscript, a handwritten book. Royal autobiography, an account of a ruler's life and achievements written by the ruler. Biographer, a person who writes an account of someone's life. Terms used to describe Indian subcontinent. The Indian subcontinent is a large region which includes India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh and Myanmar. In ancient period, it was known as Bharatvarsh. According to Vishnu Puran, the country lying to the north of the ocean and south of Himadri or Himalayas is called Bharatvarsh because there lived the descendants of King Bharat. India was also called Aryavart, but this name referred to North India, that is the areas lying between the Himalayas and western Vindhyas. The Greeks referred to India as Indus. In the 13th century, Minhaj-e-Siraj in a chronicle mentioned the conquest of Hindustan by Muhammad Ghori. He used the word Hindustan to mean only the areas of the whole of Punjab, Haryana, Delhi and parts of modern Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Babur, the first Mughal emperor 1526 to 1530, used the term Hindustan to mean whole of the Indian subcontinent. In his autobiography Baburnama, he recorded his observations of events, people, flora and fauna of most of the Indian subcontinent. Article 1 of the Indian Subconstitution named the territories of the states and the union territories as India, that is Bharat. Thus, the same term has meant different things at different periods of time. Let us take one more term, foreigner. Today, the word foreigner means a person who belongs to a country that is not his own. But in medieval times, a foreigner or a Pardesi was a person who came into a town or village community from outside. In other words, a foreigner was someone unfamiliar to people living in a particular area. Medieval period, the time frame. The medieval period is the period in between the ancient and modern periods. The 8th century saw many changes in social, economic, political and cultural life of the people of India. There were also changes in the pattern of their thinking and behavior. Thus, we take the 8th century as the one belonging to the medieval period. Changes did not take place suddenly at any particular period of time. Some changes appeared earlier at some places and some quite later. Many changes took place after the downfall of the Mughal Empire and after the East India Company became the leading power in India in the middle of the 18th century. This is taken as the end of the medieval period in India. Thus, the medieval period lasted for about 1000 years from 8th century to the 18th century or between AD 700 and AD 1750. Some features of the medieval period. The medieval period is divided into early medieval period and later medieval period. The early medieval period lasted from 8th century to the middle of the 13th century. The later medieval period extended from 13th century to the 18th century. Foreign cultures, Western and Central Asian, began to influence India. Many sources to reconstruct history, archaeological, epigraphic, numismatics and literary were available to us now. The rulers of the Delhi Sultanate and the Mughal rulers came from outside and settled in India. Major historical trends. Old and new religions, the invaders like Greeks who came to India in the ancient period followed Indian religions, Hinduism or Buddhism. They adopted the Indian culture and dresses. But the Turks, Afghans, and Mughals who came to India during the medieval period brought their own culture and religion, Islam, with them. Islam spread in India, Sikhism, a new religion, was born. Later, Christianity also spread in India. Many changes took place in Hinduism, but it remained the major religious system which the Indian society was based on. A composite culture. As a result of constant interaction between old and new religions, a composite culture began to develop in India. It reflected itself in language, literature, painting, architecture, and sculpture. It is still an important feature of our heritage. Stable peace. Some of the Delhi Sultanate rulers and the great Mughals were able to provide stable peace for many centuries. Sufism and the Bhakti movement. Two great religious movements, Sufism and Bhakti movement, developed during this period. They helped in bringing about good understanding between Hinduism and Islam. Emphasis was placed on love, brotherhood, tolerance, and unity of God. Social, economic, and political changes. As in the earlier ages, our society was divided into many castes and subcastes, jatis. Most of the jatis had their own rules regarding marriage and behavior of their members. In the villages, the panchayats still settled disputes and collected taxes. There was a general decline in the status of women. Polygamy, parda system, and sati were some of the customs which marked their low status. There are many stories about fearless Rajput warriors. In Sanskrit, the word Rajan means king and Putra means son. The term Rajput included not only rulers but the members of a Hindu military caste claiming Kshatriya descent. The Marathas, Sikhs, and Jats had also become politically strong during this period. The prince and the nobles lived in great luxury. They had fine palaces and wore costly dresses. Many of them kept slaves who were bought and sold as they liked. But where did the wealth of these rich classes come from? It came from the common people, the peasants, the artisans, and the traders. The common people had to pay several kinds of taxes to the local lords. Potatoes, chilies, tea, and a few other crops began to be grown in the Indian subcontinent during this period. Rise of the British power. Commercial interests drew the English, the French, and the Dutch to India. It ultimately led to the establishment of British rule over India in the 18th century. Sources of history for the medieval period. Many good sources are available to reconstruct the history of the medieval period. The sources can be divided into three main groups: archaeological, epigraphic, and numismatics, and literary. Archaeological sources. The objects excavated are few, but protected monuments are many that provides sufficient knowledge regarding this period. These include temples like Brihadeshwar, Kandariya Mahadev Temple, Lingaraj Temple, Sun Temple at Konark, etc. Mosques like Quwat ul Islam and Jama Masjid, forts like the Red Fort, the Agra Fort, and the Chittor Fort, the tombs like the Humayun's tomb and the Akbar's tomb at Sikandra, and the Taj Mahal, and palaces like those of Jodhpur, Jaisalmer, and the minars like Qutub Minar in Delhi. Epigraphic and numismatic evidences. Epigraphic sources pertain to inscriptions which were carved on stones and copper plates. The inscriptions are found on most monuments like temples, forts, palaces, etc. They provide valuable information about rulers, their policies, conquests, trade, a specific time when a particular event occurred, prosperity of the kingdom, and much more. The inscriptions are more valuable than literary sources because they cannot be tampered with. Numismatics is the study of coins. The rulers of this period issued both gold and silver coins. They are found all over India. They throw light on important political events, the economic prosperity of the kingdoms and the period they belong to. Some of the manuscripts of this period were decorated with miniature paintings. These paintings were in the form of illustrations. They throw light on the development of the art of painting during the medieval period. Literary sources. In the early medieval period, 8th to 18th century AD, paper was not in use in India. In this period, the material for writing included palm leaves, bark of birch tree, and animal skins. In the later medieval period, 13th to 18th century AD, paper was the chief writing material. Literary sources include royal autobiographies, official records, chronicles, religious texts, works of historians, and the accounts of foreign travelers. The Brahmins and others continued to study the sacred books in Sanskrit, but most of the literary works were available in Arabic and Persian. Royal autobiographies. Firoz Shah Tughlaq wrote his autobiography called Futuhat-i-Firoz Shahi. Babur wrote his memoirs called Tuzuk-e-Babri in Turkish. It is an authentic source of information for this period. Official records. Amber Rajput chiefs preserved many documents including their correspondence with the Mughal rulers, royal proclamations, and reports regarding the administration of their estates. Chronicles. Ziauddin Barani was a 14th century chronicler. He wrote a chronicle which begins with the accession of Balban and comes down to the early years of Firoz Shah Tughlaq. Abul Fazl wrote Aina-e-Akbari, which gives a detailed account of the administrative system of the great Mughal Emperor Akbar. Literary works like Ras Tarangini by Kalhana and the epic Prithviraj Raso by Chandra Bardai are works of great historical importance. These works throw light on early medieval India. Accounts of foreign travelers. India attracted the attention of many foreign travelers. Marco Polo of Venice visited India in the 13th century. He has left an interesting account of the southern Pandya kingdom. He also visited Warangal. His work speaks highly of the merchants of Gujarat. Ibn Battuta was a native of Morocco and visited India during Muhammad bin Tughlaq's reign. Niccolo Conti, an Italian traveler who visited India in AD 1420, spoke highly of the Hindu kingdom of Vijayanagar. Archives are places where old manuscripts, documents, and records are stored. Elsewhere, Arabia. Islam was founded by Prophet Muhammad early in the 7th century AD. His successors were known as Caliphs or Khalifas. Muhammad was succeeded by Abu Bakr in 632 AD. The Arabs became united under his leadership. Abu Bakr and his successors conquered large parts of Western Asia, Syria, Jordan, Iraq, Turkey, Persia, as well as Egypt and whole of North Africa. They crossed into Spain and then invaded southern France. The Arabs, however, were defeated in AD 732. The Islamic civilization was a prominent civilization during the medieval period. Turkish invaders. By the end of the 10th century AD, Turks had risen to power in Central Asia. Mahmud of Ghazni was a Turk who invaded India 17 times between AD 1000 and AD 1025. His great desire was to loot India and carry as much wealth as possible to Ghazni. Then another sultan called Muhammad Ghori of Ghazni attacked India. His first invasion was directed against Multan in AD 1175. It were the Turks and not the Arabs who established the Muslim power in India. The medieval Europe. Emperor Charlemagne ruled from AD 771 to AD 814. He built up a vast empire which included the countries now known as France, Belgium, and parts of Germany and Italy. The Arabs had already conquered Spain and terrorized southern France. Religion dominated the life of the people during this period. At the head of the Roman Catholic Church stood the Pope. All other bishops were regarded as the representatives of the Pope. The church possessed much land and wealth. In AD 1076, the holy city of Jerusalem was conquered by the Turks. The Pope urged the rulers and people of Europe to rescue the holy city. Thus began the Crusades, holy wars in AD 1096. So this was our chapter where, when and how. If you have any doubt or query, you can ask me in the comment box below. Thank you everyone.